Donald Trump's vow to lower the prices, boost factory jobs, and improve life for the middle class has yet to materialize. With the midterm elections a little more than 3 months away, the economy has also stalled in many of the areas where Donald Trump said that mass deportations of undocumented people and higher import taxes would trigger a boom, with the U.S. and Israeli war against Iran intensifying some key risks. The first 18 months of President Donald Trump's second term in the White House have seen a series of policy-driven economic shocks, highlighted by higher tariffs that he promised during his 2024 presidential campaign and an unanticipated war with Iran that has boosted the price of oil and threatened global supply chains. Coming up in today's program, Donald Trump's economics 18 months point. Trump's economic policies have been a whirlwind of ups and downs, from inflation, which has been increasing, to factory jobs, which has been decreasing. Our second headline: tariffs, war, and economic shocks. What has Donald Trump done to the economy? The question should be, what hasn't he done? From tariffs to economic shocks to the Iran war, he has pretty much covered the entire gamut. Unpopular war and economic downturn. But the illegal aggression on Iran has cost the U.S. economy a lot, leading to an economic downturn, which is evident in the lower than expected economic output, or the GDP. We're going to be discussing those points and a whole lot more with our guests right here. Nick Cruse, writer, activist, and co-founder of Revolutionary Blackout Network, and Dr. Matthias Vernengo, full professor of Bucknell University.
Hey, thank you for inviting me on the show. Donald Trump, he couldn't care about the American people any less than he does. He promised that he was going to address the problems of inflation in the economy. Meanwhile, he's bragging about how he's been the best president that Israel has ever had. He even mocked the pain that the American people was feeling during the inflation crisis by saying it was an inflation crisis hoax. So he don't care about the American people. The only thing he cares about is dividing the American people by pushing culture wars and division and doing the agenda of the Zionist regime and promoting endless wars. As the American people are suffering, they are expanding the United States military, who cannot pass an audit, by the way. They're expanding their budget to $1.5 trillion as the American people struggle to eat, as their quality of life continues to drop. This is what we've seen throughout the ruling class meeting talks before. They're promising to take care of the American people, but abandon them the second they take power. 。 . 。 . 。 .
。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 .
。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 .
。
It has been exactly 1 year since President Donald Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. When it comes to income, the trend has continued in the US, and Donald Trump's policies are no exceptions. Incomes for the wealthy and highest earners prosper, while lower and middle income households fare less well. The net worth of the top 1% grew 30% over the past 3 years. The middle 40% grew by less than 10% over that same period.
People have been predicting a massive economic downturn for a very long time, and Donald Trump's mismanagement is making things even worse. But to be clear, this is a bipartisan failure of neoliberalism in the West that has been a problem even before Donald Trump took office. The result of failed neoliberal policies that promotes giant police states, giant authoritarian military budgets, has led to the top 1% in the United States owning more wealth than the bottom 90%. We have over 60% of Americans who live paycheck to paycheck. We have 1 out of 5 children in America who live in poverty and face food insecurity. That's why they spend a lot of money promoting propaganda in Hollywood and on TV shows to promote the image of Americans living a fancy, very well lavish life. But the reality of Americans is one of suffering due to capitalist mismanagement. Our infrastructure is even falling apart. But instead of fixing that, once again, the focus of Donald Trump and the entirety of the United States Congress is just to provide money for never-ending wars, providing billions of dollars to Ukraine and billions of dollars to the state of Israel.
This is the social section of the program. I can't believe this is a real video and not AI. Donald Trump says America can't afford to take care of Americans' Medicare and daycare, but he can find well over $3.1 billion every year to send to Israel. Another
1776
is needed in America.
Because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it, too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up. But it's not possible for us to take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things, they can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection, because the United States can't take care of daycare.
Donald Trump's administration is ending Medicare Part D subsidies, raising prescription drug costs for more than 11 million Americans. You can't afford rent, you can't afford groceries, you can't afford to get sick. They found $1 billion a day for bombs. The money exists, they just decided you don't deserve it.
Promises made, promises broken in the minds of the American public. 44%, 38% said they make them worse off back in October of 2024. Look at these numbers now. Oh my goodness, John's shaking his head off on the side. Now 58%, nearly 3 in 5 voters say that Trump is making them financially worse off. That's up like a rocket. The better off, down through the floor in a Lake Michigan. These are absolutely devastating numbers. The issue that got Trump reelected, now the voters absolutely turn against.
Donald Trump says we have an amazing economy. Really? 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck. 85 million are uninsured or underinsured. More than 750,000 people are homeless. The price of groceries is through the roof. If this is amazing, then God help us.
Thank you very much for having me in your show. First, let me separate the perceptions and the actual economic performance. I think the economy, in some ways, structural things have not been doing well for a long while. Precedes Trump. In fact, it is the poor performance of the economy that explains why Trump is in the presidency, and not just this time, 2016 and whatnot. So for working class Americans, it's been 4 decades since the economy sort of really showed significant improvement for them. In the very short term, the American economy was already slowing down coming out of the pandemic because the stimulus of the pandemic was coming down. So the economy has slowed down, and Trump has not helped that. So the economy is growing, which is not terrible, at about 2%, slightly more, I think, the first quarter. But that's the average. By European standards, it's actually pretty decent. The unemployment rate in the United States is low, 4.2%. However, that doesn't mean that the situation in the labor market is good. So that camouflages a situation in the labor market that it's much worse, with people that don't get enough work and are discouraged and are out of the labor force and so on and so forth. So those are significant problems. But again, those problems have been there for a while. First, manufacturing. For those that thought that just hiking tariffs, and the tariffs have been problematic, part of them have been sort of repudiated by the Supreme Court, although he has reimposed tariffs again. But the average tariffs did go up. And the tariffs, many thought, including the labor movement in the United States, people that were for tariffs in the among unions and whatnot, they did not bring back manufacturing jobs. So manufacturing jobs require more than just tariffs. They require industrial policy, incentives, national strategy, things that, if anything, with the election of Trump and the end of the Biden government, have become less organized. So there was more of a preoccupation of bringing some manufacturing jobs, I think, in a more coherent way with the Biden administration. The prospects for the future, I think, depend incredibly on what policy choices are made. And the war in Iran is a complicated sort of thing, because on the one hand, the war in Iran has, as I said in the first question, accelerated inflation. And that implies that the Fed might keep interest rates, if not hike the interest rate, at least maintain interest rate at a level that is relatively high. And that creates problems because a lot of the consumption depends on credit, and interest rates are high. The housing market, that's the most important mechanism. The housing market heavily depends on credit, on mortgage rates, and mortgage rates remain relatively high. So that is something that points to a weakness in the American economy.
This is the info news section of the program. AI bubble burst. The AI bubble is bursting, don't get mauled. The AI hardware and semiconductor sector has experienced a sharp correction. Despite recent volatility, the AI bubble has not peaked. Our special investigation revealed this one example, that South Korea's stock market, it has plunged as AI-driven boom fades. South Korean stocks have dropped for a second consecutive session, with Seoul's equity market losing about $2.18 trillion in value. Poverty in Italy. Council of Europe sounds the alarm. 1 in 7 children in Italy lives in absolute poverty. The situation is particularly prevalent in the south, in outlying areas, and in the most disadvantaged urban neighborhoods, affecting single-parent families and those with more than 3 children in particular. Donald Trump's tariffs, they are sending some companies back to China. For some U.S. brands seeking a location for their factories, the economic logic is once again pointing to China. U.S. LNG sales. Washington's tap war strategy constrains oil and gas rivals to elevate American LNG. This indicates that Washington is pursuing the tap war strategy, a calculated effort to limit competing oil and gas sources so that the higher cost U.S. shale gas and LNG can meet global demand. This is the in-depth section of the program. Donald Trump's economic performance during the past 18 months leaves a lot to be desired. Main Street USA is saying it, economists are saying it, economic data for the most part is saying it, and so are U.S. politicians from both sides of the aisle. In our presentation for this part, we will look at some senior U.S. politicians like Senator Brian Schatz, Chuck Schumer, and Bernie Sanders. We will also look at an example of U.S. economic data that is hurting millions of Americans, and that is the mortgage rates. First, let's see what Brian Schatz has to say about the U.S. economy.
There's a lot going on in the world. Gas is about $4 nationally. Hawaii, it's about $5.50. People can't afford their health care. People can't afford their groceries. And Senator Klobuchar said it exactly right. This is about priorities. This is about giving $70 billion more money to ICE than the United States Marine Corps.
What the senator there is saying is that regular people can't afford their lives anymore. They can't afford to put food on the table. They can't afford their electricity bills. They can't afford to put gas in the tank. They can't afford their health insurance. The numbers are here for you to see. Check out the price of beef as an example, to have increased almost 20% right here, more in major cities across the US as well. Electric bills, another example, up 30%. All of these price increases subtract from the ability of US consumers' purchasing power. Now let's look at what U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer has to say about the most recent GDP numbers, which was quite disappointing to say the least.
Well, Mr. President, today, the disastrous Trump economy delivered another 1-2 gut punch to the American people. Growth is down, costs are up. The American people don't need government reports and economists to tell them how sluggish Trump's economy is or how high costs are. Americans see it at the gas pump, they see it at the grocery store, they see it whenever they pay the rent or for heating or for electricity. Trump, on the other hand, has no clue just how deep in the dumps his economy is.
Chuck Schumer absolutely torches Donald Trump after 1.5% GDP growth. 2022 to 2023, there was a steady economic growth, but 2025, there was a dip, as you can see right here. And then comes the point where the U.S. finds itself in. After all the promises made by Donald Trump, 1.5% economic growth. Now it's time to listen to Senator Bernie Sanders.
Every morning in America, tens of millions of people are waking up and they're saying, how am I going to put food on the table for my kid? How am I going to fill up the gas tank where gas is $4.50 a gallon? What happens if my car breaks down and I can't get to work? And if I can't get to work, I lose my job. If I lose my job, how's my family going to survive? What happens when my dad gets sick and he can't afford prescription drugs when my kid gets sick? How am I going to put away a few bucks so maybe I can retire with dignity? Half of older workers in America have nothing in savings.
Bernie's message to the ruling class, pretty dire situation. 1 in 4 Americans, that's 26% of all Americans, say they cannot pay for a $500 repair job. Imagine that. Maybe it's because they don't even have $400 in their bank account or their credit has run dry. Pretty dismal situation for many Americans. Now, on that point, let me bring in our guest, Nick Cruse, a writer, activist, and co-founder of Revolutionary Blackout Network, into this conversation. Mr. Cruse, in one of the starkest polls, 95% of Americans believe the U.S. is suffering an affordability crisis. That's according to a survey conducted by Harris Poll, which paints this bleak picture of how people feel about the U.S. economy amid the war on Iran and ahead of the midterm elections coming up in November. What do you think and how do you think that is going to affect Donald Trump's presidency and the midterm elections results?
Oh, Donald Trump is going to face a historic defeat in the midterms, but this is how the system is designed for one oligarch to take charge, do the bidding of the empire, and then pass the baton to the next puppet of the empire. This is the same thing we've seen happen under Joe Biden when the inflation crisis became even worse as he committed a genocide and funded Nazis in Ukraine. Donald Trump is the most corrupt politician of all time, and that's going to lead to his massive defeat in the midterms. Donald Trump has made over $2 billion. Jared Kushner and his family have made hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars on shady deals. So yeah, this is how the system goes. You have the revolving door of corruption. The Republicans will lose, and then the Democrats will take charge, and they will rule for a while, and then they will sell out the American people, and then Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance may be elected in the next election cycle. The system is designed to fail, but to keep itself in power at the same time. It's a failed democracy.
Now it's time to take a look at the mortgage rate. The rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage rate now stands at 6.66%. That is one of the highest in 1 year. Again, that bites into the consumer purchasing power since it is a constant that they have to dole out every month. Now, on that final point, let me bring in our other guest, Dr. Matthias Vernengo, full professor at Bucknell University. Professor, inflation on many goods, especially food and energy, is up. Manufacturing output is down. 75,000 fewer Americans work in factories than 18 months ago. Then the Iran war has hurt the U.S. consumers big time as well. How will this hurt the chances of Donald Trump's Republican Party winning the midterms in November?
Well, I'm not a political analyst. What I can tell you is that there is an affordability crisis. There's no doubt. Inflation has accelerated. As I said, some people at the bottom, actually, until very recent, from 2023, for a while during the pandemic, they were losing. But for the most part, since 2023, the wages of non-skilled workers have sort of recovered. But again, from a low base. So I think that there is an affordability crisis. There is an anger, particularly. I think that the price of gas and oil, oil and then gas, and when people can drive in this country is sort of a serious issue. People take very seriously the fact that gas is more expensive, and so I think that is a problem that he'll have electorally. I think that yes, all indicates that the situation and that there is discontent and that he may lose the midterms. It wouldn't be a surprise. It's the norm in American elections that the midterm elections go against the incumbent. So that would be not necessarily a surprise if that happens. The more important thing from my perspective is what happens in not the midterms, what happens in 2 years. And I think in order for an alternative to the economic policies of Trump to emerge, there would be a need for the Democratic Party to embrace some of the more populist sort of proposals on the left of the Democratic Party that address exactly those issues, the issues of affordability, not just of gas, but affordability of healthcare, affordability of education, which is, I work at a university, is very expensive. And I think that those issues will certainly affect not only just the midterm, but the future, presidential elections in 2.5 years.